Hello, 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 and welcome to the end of the if statements week. So, this week you learned all about if statements and how to use them to make decisions in your code using either an if statement, an else if statement, or an else statement, or likely a combination of all three. So, to practice that, this week's project is a challenge to write a P5 sketch that contains five if, else if, or else statements, any combination of any three of those. So five total of any three of those, if that makes sense. So five if statements would work, one if statement and four else if statements would work, one if statement and then an else statement and then an if statement and then an else if and then an else. As long as it's five total, that'll also work. Um, Up to you. You can use more than that, of course, but I'm going to stop counting when I get to five. Um, okay, so this video is just going to walk through kind of how I would start the project and how I would approach it and whatnot. So I've given you a couple of options in the text here. And they're basically to try out some of the functions in P5 that give you the current date or the current time. I think there's some fun things you can probably do with those. So in the video for this week, I actually used the current time to show a different thing based on whether it was morning or afternoon or nighttime. And you can watch through that video. Hopefully you or did watch the video, right? To get a sense of how I would use those functions. But there are other functions, and maybe I'll explore those in this video. So there's a whole bunch of them: day, hour, minute. I would stay away from millis just because it's kind of a weird one. Month, second, or year. You can use these and then store the value of any of these in a variable, and then use that variable or a combination of variables in a series of if statements. So that's kind of the high level goal this week, and what you do is up to you. The kind of meta goal of this class is to leave a lot of room for creativity. So if you want to do something like, I don't know, make an alarm clock for yourself, you could do that. Or if you wanted to show a different scene depending on what time it was. So maybe at 8 o'clock, you show somebody getting out of bed. Maybe at 9 o'clock, they're in class. Maybe at 5 o'clock, they're at work. Something like that. Show like what your day looks like, or a fictional day, whatever floats your boat. But no matter what your goal is, I think you'll follow the same kind of process. So that process is what I'm going to walk through. So I think my goal is maybe I'll play with the month and day functions because I haven't touched those in this class yet, and yeah, it might be fun. So I'll start out by reading through the reference. So the month function, here's a good example where they store it in a variable, returns a value that represents the current month and looks like it's between 1 and 12. So that kind of makes sense. January through December. Cool. And then the day function, I'm guessing, is similar. Yep. Gives me a number between 1 and 31. What I was checking for is maybe it started with 0, because a lot of times computer stuff starts with 0, but I guess they start with 1 just like humans do. So cool. And yeah, that's kind of all I have in my brain so far. So let me go to the editor. And this gives me my handy dandy P5 editor. I'm logged in, all that good stuff. I've got my canvas. So maybe I'll start by creating a variable. Maybe I'll say like let current month equals, and for now I'm just going to hard code it. I'm just going to say, I don't know, 3. It's March. That's my birthday. And do I care about the current day? I don't know if I care about it yet, but I'll make a variable for it anyway, and I'll say 21 maybe. And I haven't used these variables yet. Nothing should change. I can run my code just to double check. Cool. And maybe I should actually take a step back and think about what is my actual goal. So maybe what I want to do is, maybe I'll try to show something different depending on what season it is. So if it's winter, I'll show something. If it's spring, I'll show something. if it's fall, I'll show something, and if it's winter, I'll show something. I could also maybe instead um, show something based on like, is it a holiday? So if it's, I don't know, like Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day or like my birthday or July 4th or Halloween, maybe I'll use if statements to show that. That could be another project idea. But for now, maybe I'll just keep it kind of, I hate the word simple, but there's only 4 seasons, so maybe that'll be easy to work with. Let's find out. So maybe I'll start by just drawing the current date to the screen. So maybe I'll start with something like the text function. And here I'm going to do something that I haven't actually talked about in class, but hopefully it makes sense. I'm going to append those two values. I'm going to say current month plus, and then a slash symbol plus current. Wait, is that how it goes? It's 319. It's 3/19, right? Yeah, current day. And I'm going to draw that somewhere, I don't know, let's say like width over 2, height over 2. And it's not too exciting yet because my current month and my current day are just hard-coded. But that gives me something to work with. Maybe I'll increase my text size while I'm here. Text size to some number, 72. So I've got my date printed, and I kind of want to center it. So maybe I'll call like text align, center. And as always, if some of these things are not familiar to you, that's totally fine. I don't expect you to memorize anything, but if you're like, hey, wait a second, how does that text size function work? Go to the reference and check out the text size function and get more information that way. You're not limited to just the things I tell you. You can sort of look stuff up yourself in the reference, and that's an important skill to develop. Anyway, so now I'm centering my text, hopefully. Yeah, I think maybe I want another parameter in there for centering it vertically as well. Again, you can check that in the reference. All right, cool. That's looking a little better. So I am drawing my date to the canvas. Great. And maybe below that, maybe I will have an if statement that says like if current month, and maybe just for simplicity, just to make my life easier, maybe I won't care about the day for now. Maybe I'll just say that spring goes to like, maybe I'll say that spring starts in March 1st. So I'll say if current month is less than 3, then I want to draw something else. I want to draw something like it's winter or something, or I could maybe throw an emoji in there. I sometimes use emojis as a placeholder. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll type like a snowflake emoji or snowman emoji. Oh yeah, that's cute. And I'll put that at width over 2 and height times 0.75, so it's kind of like down there. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to run this, and I'm going to expect nothing changes because my current month is 3, and my if statement says if current month is less than 3, then do something. Since it's not less than 3, I don't expect it to change. And cool, great, wonderful. Now I'm going to change it so that it's February, and now it should change, and it does. There's my cute little snowman. It's February 21st here. So now I can kind of proceed iteratively, and I can think about like, now this works, and I have one if statement, and that's 1 out of 5. So I need 4 more. So maybe I'll just kind of stick with the same pattern. Another thing I could do is maybe I could care about the date in there. So maybe I'll add like an and operator or something, but maybe I'll just keep trucking like this. So I'll say maybe else if current month is less than. So I want to talk about spring. So I'll say spring is March, April, and May. So I'll just do like quarters basically. March, April, May. May is 5. June is 6. So if less than 6, if the current month is less than June, then I want to say spring. So what's a springy emoji? Is there spring? What's that? Is there like a tree maybe? Maybe a flower? I don't know. Sunflower. Do sunflowers grow in the spring? Not really. There's summer thing. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. I'll just choose one. and I'll put that in the same place, width over 2, height times 0.75, so it's sort of in the center horizontally, but towards the bottom vertically. And so now I'm saying if the current month is less than 3, if it's 1, 2, or actually just 1 or 2, then draw a snowman. Cool. Otherwise, if it's less than 6, which means that it's not 1 or 2, because we've already passed this if statement. So I know that it's 3, 4, or 5, then I draw a flower. So when I hit run, nothing should change because I haven't changed my variables. Great. I'll change this to 3, kind of test that like border case to make sure I'm checking it right. And that is indeed a flower. It's kind of gross, the gray on gray, but that's okay. Maybe I'll change it to the current day being 6 to make sure that now like nothing should draw, I think. Yeah, cool. Notice that my date still draws my text up here because that's outside of the if statement, so that happens first, even before I start checking the date. So I'm going to keep going. I think I kind of have the pattern down now. So if current month is less than probably 9, right? Just judging from what the previous 2 were. So if it's less than September, so if it's June, July, or August, then I'll draw like a summary thing, text, and maybe it's like a sun. So I'll get my emoji keyboard out and like a sun. That's cute. Sure. I like the emojis just because I'm a terrible artist myself. But you know, feel free to be more creative than I am being now. So like maybe in here you draw your flower, maybe in here you draw your snowman. You know, it's totally up to you. And to be honest, I'm not grading on that part, but you can mix and match some of the things that you learned in the previous weeks to make this a little bit more unique to you. But for me, for the purposes of this video, maybe I'll just stick with emojis. So I wrote a new else if statement, and let me just test that my code doesn't change. Oh, actually it did change because my old value was 6, right? So that's actually expected because current month is 6, and so it's not being handled by this else if. It goes down to this else if current month is less than 9. It is indeed. Okay, cool. Let's double check that my old ones are still working just to be sure. And there's my snowman when it's February. Let's make it April, and I should see my beautiful gray flower, and cool. And I'll put it back to like 8 to get the sun back out. And otherwise, what do I want to do? Do I want an else here? So if it's, let's see, if it's 10, 11, or 12, then it's October, November, December. That's not really fall. Actually, maybe I'll split it up. Maybe I'll say else if current month is less than 12. So I'll go just for 10 and 11, just for October and November. And in here, I'll draw something kind of autumnal, a fall leaf or something like that. I'm going to add spaces just because it's my personal preference to put a space after if, but P5 doesn't care. Up to you. So in here, what do I want? Like a fall leaf. Fall leaf, maybe. Fallen leaf, maple leaf. Is there one that's like a tree that has no? All right, whatever. Fall leaf it is. Could do a spooky skeleton. Actually, yeah, of course I should do that. Of course I'm going to do a jack-o'-lantern. Of course I am. That's so much better. Yes. Width over 2, height times 0.75, just to put it in the same place that my other emojis are. And then, yeah, let me pause and test this. So right now, nothing should change because I haven't changed my variable. Cool. So if it's July, then I'm showing the sun, and that makes sense because it's less than September. Let me go to 9 just to test that kind of boundary condition. 9. There we go. And wait, do I expect that? Yeah, I do actually, because it's September, so I'm counting September as spooky season here. September, October, November are my 3 months. Yeah, okay. And then else, there's a couple ways I could do this. I could say else if current month equals 12. I could do it that way. Because if it's 12, this current month less than 12, 12 is not less than 12, so it'll keep checking. So I could say else if current month equals 12. Then I'll draw something for December. I could also get away with just doing an else here, else. And that would work because the current month will never be anything other than 12 if it's here. Like, it's never going to be 13. So I could get away with an else, but I actually think I kind of prefer the else if, just because it makes it a little bit more clear exactly what I'm trying to do. It's down to personal preference. I think you can go either way. So maybe here, I saw that there was like a little Christmas tree earlier, so maybe I'll add that. You can add whatever holiday you want. But just to keep it kind of straightforward, I'll just stick with that. Okay, so now nothing should change because it's still October, or it's still September. Now it's October, still spooky season. Now it's November, still spooky season. And now it's December, and now I'm going to draw my little holiday tree there. Okay, so how many am I at right now? I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I could call it done. I could say that I am happy with this, and the important part of this project is to be practicing if statements and else if statements and else statements. I am not going to grade on the look and feel here, but if you are curious, if you want to do something a little bit more involved, then I'll walk through how I might approach that as well. So far, all of my if statements, actually here, maybe before I get there, actually what I'll do is the payoff is, right now I'm hard coding the current month and the current day. Current day I'm only using to draw to the screen, but whatever, it's fine. But now, instead of hard coding it to a value, which I was doing just for testing, I was making it easy for me to change the month without going down to my clock and changing the thing and waiting for my browser to like realize that I changed it. That's kind of annoying to deal with. So just being able to change it really quickly is good for testing purposes. But now I want to send this to people. I want to share this with the world, or I just want to maybe put it up on my monitor and have it be my daily calendar. I can do that by going back to those time and date functions. Where'd they go? Time and date right there. And now I can use the month and day functions as my values instead. So I'm going to set my current month variable equal to the value that is returned by the month function. So I'm going to call the month function here. And the current day, I'm going to call the day function here as well. So now I don't hard code the number. Now I ask P5 for the number. And now if I run this, it is currently August 23rd. So we see the beautiful smiling sunshine. As the days progress, if I wanted to be really boring, I would just leave this up for 18 hours, or actually just 6 hours, I guess, until it crossed midnight, and then I'd get a new day and you'd see that. I'm not going to do that though, because that'd be a really boring video, but this will update as my clock changes, which is cool because now I can just use this without needing to update it every day, which is kind of the power of some of these functions. And this, you could hand this in. I could hand this in, I'd get full credit for the project. This is 5 out of 5, and I'll multiply by 2 to make it out of 10. So great, we could be done. But like I was saying earlier, if you wanted to do something a little bit more involved, then here's how I would approach that part of it. So maybe I'll go back to having a hard-coded thing. So let's go back to spooky season. Let's say instead of drawing, I don't know, just this jack-o'-lantern here, I wanted to like draw it myself. How I would do that? First of all, maybe I'll delete that line of code and just give myself some white space. And in here, inside of this else if statement, you can write any code you want, and including other if statements. But so far I haven't talked about that, so maybe I'll just hide that from you. Maybe I'll talk about that in a second, actually. But how I would approach this is writing code inside of this if statement or inside of this else if statement exactly how I've been writing code for all of the other weeks. So I could draw something like a circle, and I could maybe put it at width over 2, height times 0.75, kind of where I'm drawing it now. And maybe I'll give it a size of, I don't know, 50 or so. We'll see if that looks right or not. And, kind of close enough. I could, and I could iterate from there. I could maybe say, actually, I want that circle to be orange. So I'll give a fill color of RGB, something like that. I kind of don't remember orange. You could look it up. If you didn't know ahead of time, you could say RGB orange, maybe. And, here's your value. 255, 165, 0 gets that color. So maybe I'm wrong, but let's find out. Yeah, close enough. Okay. I also happened to change the fill color of my numbers, which maybe I want, maybe I don't want. So I could kind of iterate from here, and I could say, actually, I want this to be black. So I'm going to change that back to 0. Okay, so now I'm back down here, and I don't know, what do I want to do? Maybe I will draw another circle. I didn't really plan this ahead of time, so bear with me. Times 0.75. What do I want? Maybe 75? Maybe slightly bigger than that first circle. And okay, so now I'm just covering that other circle. So let me switch these. Let me draw the bigger one first and the smaller one second. And as I'm doing this, I realize this is not what I want, because that's not really a pumpkin. So maybe I want an ellipse. And you can see that, like, what I'm doing here now, it doesn't really have anything to do with if statements. I'm just writing code and following the same pattern that I followed in other weeks, where I'm just kind of playing around with the parameters and the functions to draw what I want. So actually, maybe what I want is them to be the same height. They should all be what? Maybe 75? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, now it's a basketball, so that's something. Maybe I'll add one more ellipse, width over 2, height times 0.75, and they're always going to be there. And then I'm going to make one slightly wider, but the same height. Will that end up looking like a pumpkin? Sort of pumpkin-y, Sure. And I could do something very similar for each date. Draw my snowman, draw my flower, draw my sun, whatever I want to do, and that would work. That's kind of the power of if statements. You can put whatever code you want inside of them, and the computer or P5 will only run this code if the if statement evaluates to true. So if I go back and I change my current month back to August, which it actually is in real life, my beautiful pumpkin will go away, and I'll go back to my sun, because now this section of code is running. And again, I could replace this line of code with something else, with me drawing my own thing, with drawing a different message, a background, really anything that we saw so far, you can put inside of these if statements. So that is how I would proceed if I wanted to make this a little bit more involved. That part's kind of optional, though, so do what sparks joy for you. Maybe the last thing I'll mention is, will I even bother with this? Maybe I'll put it down here, and I'll say, let's say it's December. First of all, let me say the current month is December. And this is now, what I'm going to mention is just kind of maybe an advanced concept that I didn't really talk about in the other lessons, and I don't expect you to do this, but if you're curious, if you've reached the end of this video and you're still looking for other things that you could try to experiment with, here's another one. So actually, do I want this to be Christmas? I guess I will. It's a little awkward that's Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, substitute in a different holiday. I didn't plan this ahead of time, so I didn't plan it to be a Christmassy thing. I don't even like Christmas myself, so bear with me. But I just wanted to pick a holiday that's in December, and that's the one I know off the top of my head. Right now what I have is I've hard coded the current month to be 12, to be December, and this code is running. This code is currently running. Let's say I wanted some other piece of code to run if it's December 25th. So far, I've only checked my current month. I haven't checked my day. So there's a few ways I could do this. One way is I could use the and operator, which I did talk about in this week's video. So I could say and current day equals 25. And now, what do I have the current day to? Let me hard code the current day to 13. So now it's December 13th, and I get down to this else if statement, and it says if the current month is 12, which it is, and the current day is 25, which it isn't, so this whole thing is false, so this code will be skipped, so this will not be drawn. So I could run this, and now my tree is not drawn. So if I change my current day to 25, then I think you'll see the tree come back, because now it is indeed December 25th. So that's one way I could approach it, maybe getting into some more complicated logic of checking multiple things in one if statement. Another thing I could do is, let's say I always want the tree to draw through all of December, but if it is December 25th, then I want something else to draw as well. So let me change this back to 13 just to test it out. So now I should see my tree is still drawn. And now what I want to do is maybe I'll add some white space, first of all, just give myself something to work with. And notice that I'm inside of this if statement. I'm inside of this else if statement here. And I can write any code I want here. I could draw stuff. I could draw a circle. I could draw a couple triangles for the tree maybe. Currently I'm drawing an emoji. I can put any code I want in there. And here's the sort of magical moment. Call it a Christmas miracle if you want. The code I can put inside of an if statement can be an if statement. So what that looks like is I can say if current day equals 25, then do something else. And maybe I'll say text happy holidays up at the top. Maybe I'll say width over 2, height times 0.25, just to put it up at the top, because I'm running out of room in my canvas, to be honest with you. So now read through the code line by line, kind of like you're reading through English. So if I get down here, I say else if current month equals 12, then first I draw my text, and after I draw my text, which is a tree right now, after I draw my tree, then the next line of code checks if the current day is 25. So since I'm inside of this else if statement, I already know that the month is 12, and so when I get here, now I know that the month is 12 and the day is 25. So it's similar to that ampersand, that and operator, but a different way to think about it, or a different way to organize your code. Again, do whichever way feels right to you. There's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on what your goal is and how you want your code to work. So let me run this, and now I should not see anything because I haven't changed my day yet. But if I change my current day to, let's say 24 first, just to kind of check the boundary, nothing changes yet. Now it's 25, and I'll run this, and happy holiday. That's because my text is a little too big. If I change this to, I don't know, 66 maybe. Okay, maybe 48, maybe get smaller. But you see that it's there. And now my emoji is way too small, so I could maybe change the size of my emojis to be bigger, whatever, it doesn't really matter. The point is that my code uses a combination of a bunch of things that we've talked about so far to show different things depending on the current date. So lastly, what I'll do is change this back to not being hard-coded to be the month and day variables. All right. And now we're back to August, and I'm seeing my beautiful sunshine. One last thing I'll mention, because I'm guessing that folks will hit this problem, is the name of your variable is kind of important. So how do I want to do this? If I were to name this month, I think this will break. And yeah, you already see that's kind of breaking. And the reason this breaks is month is already a thing in P5. Month is a function which gives you the month. So if you set a variable, if you create a variable named month, P5 is going to get confused and it's going to say, wait a second, you're creating a variable, but that variable is a function. So what are you trying to do here? So it's going to get confused. It's going to break. You're going to get an error message. And depending on exactly what you do, you might get a different error message. But if you try to create a variable that has the same name as a P5 function, things will go wrong. So that's why I try to name my variables like current month or current day or current hour. Okay, so I've been rambling for a while, but this is how I would approach this project. And I've given you a few different things to consider, a few different options for ways you might, like goals you might give yourself. So maybe it's like a daily schedule thing where depending on the hour of the day, you draw a different thing. Maybe it's a calendar where for each month you show a different scene. For me, I did seasons in this example. Maybe it's holidays. You can pick a few holidays that you care about. But the way I did it was first I created some variables, hard coded them to some numbers just to make it easy for testing. Then I created an if statement, but I started really small. I started with a single if statement and I got that working, tested it by changing my variables around, made sure that it worked exactly how I expected. And then I moved iteratively. I improved my code iteratively by then adding an else if statement, checking that worked, got that working. Got it working with something simple like drawing emojis to the screen, just drawing text to the screen, or drawing like maybe a single circle or a square or a triangle, drawing one thing to the screen in each if, else if, or else section. And then when I got that working, then I made my code more complicated by maybe I draw the pumpkin myself, or maybe I draw an extra message depending on something else. And then finally, I substituted back in my month and day functions for my hard-coded values that I had before. So now this will work magically if I send it to other people, or if I look at this later, or if I just keep it running, it'll magically work. So that's how I would approach this project, but I, as always, encourage you to get creative and make it your own. So, you know, don't 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 use my emojis. Use your own. Use your own drawings. Come up with your own goal and go for that. So I will stop it there and say that, as always, I am looking forward to what you come up with. And until then, happy coding.